Hello and welcome to Swift Goose. Today we're going to look at adding notifications to your Swift app for macOS, as well as adding action items to your notifications to tell your app how to respond to them when a user clicks on them. So if we click our notify button, we'll receive a notification, and we have options to be able to buy, sell, or hold our cheese coins, which will trigger something in our application. I hope you enjoy the video and learn something new. Please hit the like button, leave a comment, and subscribe, and remember to hit the dinner bell. So let's start by creating a new macOS project in Xcode. We have our app selected. Next, product name, this will just be notifications. And the first thing we'll do is copy our image here into the left side. And we'll also put it in our assets folder. And let's also drag it into our app icon as well. Okay. Now let's go to our storyboard and add a button to our view controller. Click plus. And change our title to notify. Now let's make our app a little bit bigger. And we'll hit Option, click on our view controller to open it up in a separate tab. And now we can hold Control and click on our Notify button, drag it down, and we'll just call this Notify User. Let's close our storyboard. Now let's import Foundation and User Notifications. In our top level view controller, we will set a variable for our user notification center current. And this way we don't have to type user notification center dot for everything else that we're going to do in our notify user method. Before we get started using our UN user notification center, I wanted to show you how easy it was to send notifications to a user in macOS Catalina and earlier, which is part of what prompted me to do this video because I was so used to the old way of doing it. When it came time to switch to the new way in Big Sur, it amazed me how complicated the new system is. So let me show you. And then all you did was user notification center dot default dot deliver notification our notification. And you'll see nothing actually happen. Check our notification center up here and there's nothing. Anyway, this was all deprecated in macOS Big Sur, but I wanted to show you how easy it used to be to do notifications. Let's comment out our code here. Before we can push notifications to a user, we have to request authorization from this application to the user to allow notifications. So if we go to System Preferences and Notifications, this was an application I was testing before, but we don't have our application in here yet, which means that we actually can't deliver notifications. So when we request authorization from our app should appear in here whether we allowed it or not. Let's go back to our app, and here we'll type un.request authorization. For our options, we'll do an array with an alert and a sound. And then our completion handler, hit enter. Our bool would be authorized and our error will just be error. If we're authorized, then we will print authorized. Else if not authorized, print not authorized. Else print error dot localized description as any. This initial request should only need to be done one time, and after you run the app and allow the app to be authorized to send notifications, it will appear in your notification center. So let's run our code. I'm going to click the button, and we get our alert in the top right. Let's click Allow. We come back down to System Preferences, and you'll notice it's not here. So let's close System Preferences and reopen it. Notifications, and there it is. If you wanted to test the request authorization process over and over again, you'd have to delete a certain file in your user library. So let me show you where that is. You open up Terminal and cd to your library, Preferences. Keep in mind this has to be your user library, not the system library. Let's do an ls-l, and we're looking for com.apple.ncprefs. So essentially, if you want to reset all of your notifications, you'd have to delete this file and then reboot your computer. And when you come back, you'll have a fresh file that doesn't have any of your applications in it. You can also use the defaults command to change certain values in here. But let me just show you defaults read. So essentially, you'd look through this list of applications for your application and find the auth level there. We can check our user notification settings to find our authorization status. So un.get notification settings, completion handler. We'll just put our settings in here. And let's check our settings. .authorization status. If that equals, and we see we have a couple different ones here. If we're authorized, then we can continue. Let's work backwards here to show you all the different pieces that we need. So to actually deliver our request, we need to add it to our queue. Self.un.add. You'll see this schedules a local notification for delivery. And what is it taking? It's taking a UN notification request. That's the type that we're sending. So that means we need to build out a UN notification request. Okay, so let's set a constant called request equals UN notification request. A request to schedule notification, which includes the content and the trigger. So we want this second initializer here. This is going to require identifier, a UN notification content, and a UN notification trigger. Okay, so now we need to set an identifier. Let ID equals cheese test. So let's create our trigger. And this has a couple different types that you can use. You can use a calendar notification trigger, which will trigger your notification at a certain calendar date. But let's use our time interval notification trigger, which will trigger our notification after a certain amount of time. We have a time interval and then a repeats. For our time interval, let's just put 3. And for our repeats, we'll put true. And let's actually close this so we get some more space and slide this over. And now it looks like we need a UN notification content. So let's start building out our content. Let content equals UN notification content. Now you can't actually call this first one because it's immutable. So in order to change our content, we have to use a mutable notification content. Open and close parentheses, and now we can start adding content in. Let's set our content.title equals, we'll just copy the text from above, equals content.subtitle, checking in, content.body equals, let's copy our cheese coin again, content dot, now let's add a sound as well. And we'll just be adding the UN notification sound dot default. So now we have our content, we have a trigger, and we have an ID. Let's put our ID above our trigger. And what we'll do is change our identifier to be ID, change our content to be content, and our trigger to be trigger. And now our request is built out, so we can add our request here to our add method. And for our completion handler, we will just put an error here. Say if error equals not equals nil, print error dot localized description as any. And I forgot to mention up here that if you do want your timer to be repeating, then you have to have it at least be at 60 seconds. So let's just turn our repeating to false for now, and that way we can trigger after 3 seconds. Let's run our code. When we press notify, we should get a notification after 3 seconds. You see we're authorized. Notification didn't appear. Let's check our notification center. Well, our notification is here. Let's click it to make it go away. And stop our code. If we want our app to be able to see notifications even when it's in the foreground and open, then we need to go back to our app delegate and add a couple things there. So first we need to set our UN user notification. Actually, we need to import user notification first. So set our UN user notification center dot current dot delegate to be ourself. In order to call this, we're going to have to add conformance to our app delegate. So let's add an extension below app delegate, and we will put UN user notification center delegate, and the error goes away. And here we'll call function user notification center, and here we'll select the third one, will present notification. Ask the delegate how to handle a notification that arrived while the app was running in the foreground. And for our code, we will just return our completion handler. And for our options, we'll make sure that we have it as a list and a sound. Okay, and we'll run our code. Press notify. And we didn't get it. Interesting. We did get the notification here, but let's run it again. And there goes the notification. This seems like a bug that just the first notification doesn't actually come through while the app is in the foreground. Let's close it out. Another thing to note is if your do not disturb is on, then your notification will not come through to the foreground. Click notify. And there's nothing there, but if we click the top right, we did still get the notification. Close it for now, turn off do not disturb, and let's stop. And now let's look at adding an image to our notification. To do that, we'll need to use UN notification attachment. Let's first get the file path and file URL of our image that we added into our folder. Let file path equal bundle.main.path for resource, and we want to grab our Goose 2 of type .png, and this corresponds to our Goose 2 image that we added above here. Let file URL equal URL of file URL with path, file path. Okay, so now we need to actually create an attachment, and we need to put this in a do try catch block. Let attachment equal try UN notification attachment dot init, and here we have an identifier, URL, and options. Just put this as another test. And for our URL, we will put our file URL. And for our options, we'll just put none. Then we need to add our attachment to our content. And in order to make this error go away, we have to catch our errors. Catch let error, print error dot localized description. Okay. Now we've added the attachment. If it works, And if it doesn't, we're just going to print out an error. Let's run our code again. Click notify. And now we have an image. And let's close this out for now. If we want to add actions to our notification so that when the notification appears, we can click and tell it to do something, then we first need to add a category identifier to our content. Content.category identifier equals, and we'll just put this as cheese coins. And if we option click this, it's kind of small to see, but basically you want to use this to distinguish different types of notifications in your app, and you use category identifiers primarily to create actionable notifications. So let's scroll down and create our category here. Let category equal UN notification category. And here we need an identifier, and we want our actions and our identifier options. Our identifier has to match our category identifier that we set in our content. So this will have to be cheese coins. And our actions, looks like this is an array of UN notification actions, so we'll have to set individual ones above. For our identifiers, let's just set this to a blank array. And for our options, we'll set this to a blank array as well. Now let's work on our individual UN notification actions. So we want to buy cheese coins or sell them or just hold them. So let's make an action for each. Let buy equal UN notification action. And we'll set this identifier. This has to be unique, so we will just set this to buy. The title is how it appears in the list when we click the drop down in the top right. So we want this to be buy. And then the options. So if we set this to an empty array, then when we click the action, nothing will happen. But if we add .foreground, this action will cause the app to launch in the foreground. So it'll bring our application to the front, so that way we can buy cheese coins. Let's copy this and paste it for sell, and then huddle. And now we can add an array of our actions here. So let's add buy, sell, and huddle. Those errors should go away. And our category is unused now. So now we have to set our category just before our add method here. self.un.setNotification for categories. And we'll add an array of categories, but we're just going to add our single category here. Now when we run this, and click notify. Let's see if we get it on the first time. We do. Now when we scroll over, we see that we have options. Oops, we missed it, so let's notify again. And we have options. We can buy, sell, or hodl. So these don't actually do anything for now, it just dismisses. But let's notify again and minimize the application. And now when we click buy, it should bring it to the foreground. And there it goes. So let's stop this for now. The final thing we'll do is add some basic actions that our application will take when we click the notification. So let's create a new class. Swift file. And we'll call this action handler. Class action handler. And we'll make this a singleton. Static let shared action handler. Then we'll set our private init. And then we'll set 3 functions. Function by, print by cheese coin now. sell, hold. So these are the three actions that our notification will perform when we click the options above in the notification. But now we need to tell our application what to do when the user actually clicks those. Let's go back to our app delegate. And here in our extension, we can add another function, user notification center. And we want to say did receive response. Now in here we can check our response and see what's inside. So if response dot notification dot request, this is our request, and our content and our category identifier. That's what we set before to be cheese coins. So if this equals cheese coins, then now we know that we're dealing with our cheese coins category. So now we know we can access our individual actions. Switch response.action identifier. And we have three different ones. So our case for our buy. And let's just put break here for now. Case sell. Break. Case hold. Break, and then our default case, break. Here we can call our action handler dot shared instance dot buy. And you'll notice we didn't just do dot buy, because if we do this we get an error. Instance member buy cannot be used, and that's why we created a singleton earlier. So shared instance dot buy. Let's copy this and dot sell. Copy it. Dot hold. So now when our app delegate receives a notification response from our action that we clicked up in the top right, it's going to check the action identifier. If it's buy, then we'll run our buy action, sell, and hold. And each of those should trigger our singleton instance to do one of these three functions. Let's go back to our view controller and run. Notify. Cheese coin price is moving. Okay, great, let's buy. And there we have it. Buy cheese coin now. Just test the other one just to make sure. Let's sell some. Brings our app to the foreground and sells cheese coin. That's it for today's video. I hope you enjoyed it and learned something new. Please hit the like button, leave a comment, subscribe, and remember to hit the dinner bell to get notified.